World War III, a very real prospect that we have feared for some time now, may be ramping up. Many news stories now suggesting that we are on the precipice, with Russia building nuclear-resistant bomb shelters, lowering the threshold for a nuclear strike response directly in response to the United States allowing Ukraine long-range missile strikes in Russia, which reportedly has happened, and Russia said would be an act of war against them by the nation with these weapons. They're basically saying, we're at war with you, America. We've now got word that 2 deep-sea internet cables have been severed in the Baltic. Now, we had a call from one of our members last night to become a member over at Timcast.com. This is it's actually something that I missed and something very important. The cutting of communications tends to be one of the first moves made in any escalation of war. So when I see Vladimir Putin saber rattling, saying, we'll use nukes, I go, yeah, there doesn't seem to be a line. Russia does not want to do this. China is now saying show restraint. But then we got word, it was brought up by one of our members, as I mentioned, that these deep sea cables were cut. European leaders are calling this sabotage. Yeah. One of the first moves to be made in a war is to sever communications to disrupt your enemy's ability to effectively organize and strike back. So I fear now someone may be gearing up for a legitimate World War III. As of right now, North Korea has already deployed troops. South Korea has already got involved and has been deploying machinery and military equipment and may actually deploy ground troops. It's shocking and it's worrying. But I think the building of nuclear bomb shelters should be something we consider. Over the past couple of years, there have been many prominent European leaders saying we are in World War III. And you become desensitized to it. So I hope we are wrong about this, and it's not as crazy as it appears to be. But I think with Donald Trump's sweeping victory, statements made by Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine that if the U.S. funding is cut off, we lose the war. The speculation is that Joe Biden, who has now approved long-range missiles and anti-personnel mines, the speculation is that the deep state will escalate this war to a point in which Donald Trump will not be able to negotiate its end. Maybe the cutting of these deep sea cables is a false flag made to make it impossible to negotiate any kind of peace treaty. I don't know. Probably not. But the speculation before the election was the machine state will create a war that Trump cannot stop. That way, even if he wins the presidency, they get their war. Now, let's read this news about these nuclear-resistant bomb shelters. And honestly, I think more importantly, the severing of these sea cables, these underwater internet cables. This may be one of the most shocking components here. Before we get started, my friends, head over to preservegold.com/Timpool. They're sponsoring today's segment. My friends, you've heard me say it before. When it comes to physical precious metals, we love Preserve Gold. Our friends at Preserve Gold have an exclusive offer for my viewers right now where you can get up to $15,000 in free gold and silver with a qualified purchase as well as a free guide. So check them out on X. Preserve Gold has hundreds of 5-star reviews, millions of dollars in trusted transactions with happy clients. And you can check out their x.com/preserve gold or text Tim to 50505. Now, aside from the fact that they're sponsoring this show, I tend to save these segments if they're being sponsored by a company when I think it matters most. Of course, we've done emergency food in the past and things like that, and I rarely ever do reads for these companies. Let me just stress right now, we all want to believe that with Donald Trump's victory, we're headed for smooth sailing. But it seems that there is always going to be tumult, and there may be a plan beyond. Yeah, Trump may win, but war may be coming. We can't predict what's going to happen. So regardless of what I think or what you think, I hope you are prepared in some meaningful way, be that food, water, gold, shelter, whatever it is you do. The New York Post reports Russia has started mass producing mobile bomb shelters capable of withstanding nuclear weapons while ominously accusing Biden of risking a potential World War III. The KUBM shelters are designed to offer protection for up to 48 hours against radiation from a nuclear blast or natural disaster, Russia's Emergency Ministry Research Institute said. They house up to 54 people and can also protect against explosions and shrapnel from conventional weapons, as well as falling debris and buildings and dangerous chemicals and fires, according to the Institute. And they're putting them up in the middle of cities. Yeah, this is crazy, man. Not only this, but some of these Baltic countries have been issuing pamphlets warning people to stock up on food in the event of nuclear war. They said Russian officials did not share a reason for the heftier safety measures. However, the announcement comes mere days after Biden agreed to allow Ukraine to fire U.S. long-range missiles into Russia, ramping up concerns about a potential World War III. Ukraine appeared to take advantage Tuesday, firing at least 70 miles across the border, obliterating a Russian weapons base, according to Kiev. The change comes after months of requests by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to allow Ukraine's military to use weapons to hit Russian military targets far from its border, and mere weeks before President Donald Trump takes office. Take a look at this image. The shelters being built right here. Look at this. So these are in urban areas. The idea being that if, I guess, the nuclear siren goes off, you run inside these shelters and hopefully survive the blast. These things are not always just above ground. It looks like they've got underground shelters as well. Perhaps these shelters that are being built will be placed underground. I could be wrong. On Tuesday, Russian President Vladimir Putin has approved a new official doctrine that lowered Russia's threshold for using nuclear weapons. And take a look at this. Again, this was brought up to us by a member last night. European officials cry sabotage after 2 internet cables are cut in the Baltic Sea. European officials are looking toward Russia after 2 submarine internet cables in the Baltic were suddenly disrupted in an apparent sabotage operation, just weeks after the United States warned that Moscow was likely to target critical undersea infrastructure. A cable between Lithuania and Sweden was cut on Sunday, according to Telia Lithuania, the telecommunications company that runs the link. Separately, the state-controlled Finnish telecoms company Cinia said one of its cables, which connects Finland to Germany, was disrupted on Monday. I don't know why they're saying disrupted. What does that mean? If it was cut, it was cut. The Swedish prosecution authority said Tuesday the country's National Unit Against International and Organized Crime has opened a preliminary investigation into suspected sabotage over the cut cables. Finland's National Bureau of Investigation also said it had launched an investigation. Well, the exact causes of the incidents are still being investigated. Germany's defense minister Boris Pistorius said he believed it was likely sabotage. Quote, "Nobody believes that these cables were accidentally severed. We have to know that, without knowing specifically who it came from, that it is a hybrid action. And we also have to assume that without knowing by whom yet, that this is sabotage." His comments came after the foreign ministers of Finland and Germany said in a joint statement on Monday evening that they were deeply concerned about the severed cable between their nations and raised the possibility of the incident being part of hybrid warfare. The fact that such an incident immediately raises suspicions of intentional sabotage speaks volumes about the volatility of our times. A thorough investigation is underway. Our European security is not only under threat from Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine, but also from hybrid warfare by malicious actors. However, 2 U.S. officials familiar with an initial assessment told CNN Tuesday that as of yet, there were no indications of nefarious activity nor intentional damage to seafloor infrastructure, and suggested the disruption was likely caused by an anchor dragged from a passing vehicle. I don't believe it for a second. I don't believe it was an anchor. You see, the reason they downplay these things, some might say, no, if it was Russia, they're gonna play it up and say it was Russia. No, the U.S. wants to control when the public believes there should be a war. And if the U.S. does not want the war to start now, they'll give you some story. There's no reason to believe that what they're telling us right now is correct. We don't know. Take a look at this. There are 2 cables, internet cables in the Baltic. There are many other cables underwater. Why would we assume that only these 2 are disrupted when there are many, many more? That does not seem to me, and maybe I'm wrong, doesn't seem to me like that was just an accident, because this ship likely would have caused damage to many of these other cables unless they crossed right over here and dragged between these 2. I don't know. But I do know this. I did a quick Google search. Because, as I mentioned, when our member called in and they said, it seems like the attack on communications is the precursor to war. Could this signal that we are about to enter a massive conflict in Eastern Europe? Well, the fear that many of us have is that they're going to start a war that Trump can't negotiate out of. Now, this is just a Quora post. I'm not saying it's factually true or anything. It's something to consider. It's from 8 years ago. Is the first rule of war to prevent their communications, was the question. A man by the name of Christopher Whitman, so he claims, is an ex-U.S. Army Reserve veteran of 10 years with an associate's in military history. He has he has 3,900 answers and 21.5 million views. This doesn't mean he's correct. Could be totally wrong, but I think it's interesting. Here's what he said 10 years ago, nearly 10 years ago. Yeah, you could say that in layman's terms. One of the basic fundamentals of any military operation is the ability of your forces to communicate as well as your unit's ability to limit the communications of your enemy. If your enemy can't communicate fluidly, then they are severely limited in how they can react to whatever you throw at them. That's why, if you recall, prior to most major military operations like Desert Storm or Operation Enduring, what is it? Not Enduring Freedom. It's OIF. What was the other one? I can't remember what it stands for. During the first 48 hours when the Pentagon gave their briefings on the operations, they'd repeatedly comment on hitting Iraqi command and control assets. That's not just leaders. That's radio and relay stations, cell towers, military communications, hubs, and the sort. The deadliest weapon that one soldier can carry in the battlefield isn't a gun, not an RPG, not even a missile. It's a radio. Many of you may be... Let me get the right name of this. It's it's not Enduring Freedom. It's so it's Operation Enduring Freedom is OEF, and the second one, and Operation Iraqi Freedom. Okay, there you go. Anyway, many of you may be fans of Dr. Stone. You guys ever watch Dr. Stone? It's a fun show. It's Magic School Bus for Japanese kids. There you go. It's an anime, but it is fun. The premise of the show is that everybody on Earth gets turned to stone. Several thousand years later, this really smart high school genius breaks free from petrification, and then he has to rebuild civilization. When other people get depetrified, and trust me, I'm making a point, they don't agree with his worldview. He wants a world of peace and science. Another guy wants a world of conquest and might. So they go to war. These tribes break apart. They begin fighting over how these things should be run. The more tribal, brutal side says, science got us into this mess. It destroyed the planet. It was causing pollution. We shouldn't live that way. And so the main character says, we're going to make the most powerful weapon man has ever created. And then you're wondering, what could it be? And I so proudly and humbly will brag that I knew it was communications. He said, we're going to make a weapon that will allow us to defeat all of our enemies. And I was like, it's a radio. Like, the ability to talk to each other is the most powerful asset on the battlefield. That's why when you look at these old stories and these old movies where they're drumming and blowing horns, that was communications on the battlefield. Different drum patterns signal different moves you would have to make. Because if you could respond more quickly, you could defeat your opponent. Sure enough, Dr. Stone built a cell phone. It wasn't really a cell phone, but the radio. But he called it a cell phone. But communications is it. India Today says, risk of nuclear war high. European countries ask people to stock up on food and water. World War III might not be too far, some countries believe. Well, U.S. President Joe Biden has supplied the UK with long-range American missiles. That's a typo. Vladimir Putin has decreased the threshold for the use of nuclear weapons in Russia. NATO countries, afraid, issued pamphlets to their citizens advising them on how to prepare for World War III. China's telling everyone to chill out. And this is a major factor here. If China enters the fray in any meaningful capacity, then it's World War III. Right now, it's North Korea. So you've got NATO nations, U.S. supplies, U.S. instruction. U.S. special forces and communications are assisting the Ukrainians. U.S. weapons are granted and authorization given to Ukraine to invade and attack Russia. Is Russia just going to say, oh, I guess we lose? Well, the North Korean troops are already being dispatched, and they could have another 90,000 more to a total of 100K. South Korea said they may get involved as well and deploy troops. They've already deployed war machinery. We're on the precipice. China says chill and show restraint. Biden says Ukraine can use anti-personnel mines to slow Russian advances. There's a warning sign picture. It says, stop mines. I actually don't know if it's plural. It's in Cyrillic, but I think it's English. I think it's actually a sign in English. Interesting. One thing I learned, in my travels, I was in Ukraine. I was in Kiev 10 years ago, and there was a big banner in Cyrillic, and I'm like, I can't read it. And my friend said, can you read that? I said, no, I don't speak Ukrainian. She goes, it's English. And I said, that's in English? And she goes, yeah, it's English, but written in the Cyrillic alphabet. And I was like, no kidding. I hadn't considered that. And so she explained to me, so long as you can understand what the Cyrillic letters are, you can read it like it's English. And it was English. And I'm like, oh, would you look at that? And so she explained some of it to me. But you can take a look right here. CTONMIH backwards N. Well, looks like we can say it says stop mines. There you go. The bottom one says slightly different. Anyway, they say it's the second major U.S. policy shift in a matter of days aimed at strengthening Ukraine's defenses against Russian forces. The U.S. also authorized Ukraine on Sunday to use long-range missiles. Russia has long used anti-personnel landmines in this war in Ukraine, which Ukraine has warned pose a threat to Ukrainian civilians. More than 2 years ago, the Biden admin pledged to limit the use of anti-personnel mines around the world due to their disproportionate impact on civilians. Here's what matters. With Ukraine invading the Kursk region of Russia and firing missiles on, I think it's Bryansk. I could be getting that wrong. They're basically attacking Russia. Let me pull up the map here so we can visualize this and I can get the name right. So Google Maps, let's jump on over to Ukraine and Russia. And we've got Kursk and Bryansk. Did I say Bryansk? There's Moscow. Here's Ukraine. And then you have Kursk here and Bryansk region here. And so the issue then is if they invade into this country and they begin deploying anti-personnel mines on Russian territory, that's the question. Are they going to put these in Ukrainian territory and put Ukrainian civilians at risk? Or are these going to go into Russian territory and put Russian civilians at risk? I think it's obvious. The incursions are into Russia. And thus, it stands to reason this war is going to escalate. Over at the Hill, Trump Jr. says the Biden administration is trying to cause World War III by helping Ukraine. Now, that's not his quote. They only quoted World War III. Did he literally say that? Donald Trump Jr., the eldest son of President-elect Trump, claimed the Biden administration is trying to cause World War III by helping Ukraine in its war with Russia. What did he really say? Quote, the military-industrial complex seems to want to make sure they get World War III going before my father has a chance to create peace and save lives. Gotta lock in those trillions, life be damned, imbeciles. That's a weird way to frame it, The Hill. The media is lying. He did not say they're trying to start World War III by helping Ukraine. That is a dramatically different thing, The Hill. You are disgusting. I despise these people. The lies. No, Donald Trump Jr.'s point is correct. It looks like they're trying to drive up World War III before Trump can get in and stop it. That's nothing to do with helping Ukraine. But they added that context because they made up that quote. He posted just after President Biden authorized the use of U.S. supplies long-range missiles. About 10,000 North Korean troops are aiding Russia in its war. Biden's post-election authorization renewed the question of whether Trump's administration would be as supportive of Ukraine as Biden has been. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky told a Ukrainian media outlet in an interview published Saturday that he thinks the Russian-Ukraine war will end faster under Trump. Over the weekend, Russia launched a massive drone and missile attack on Ukraine in what is being seen as the largest barrage in recent months. I think this is evidence that Donald Trump Jr. and I and others are correct. The goal is to ignite a war that Donald Trump will not be able to stop. That's why they're running fake news headlines like this. Lauren Irwin lying with a fake quote that Donald Trump Jr. never said, nor I or anybody else. Helping Ukraine as if to imply that providing any kind of aid at all is triggering World War III. No, the issue is specifically that they're giving long-range missiles to attack Russian territory directly. Russia already evacuated, 100,000 civilians? My concern is that Vladimir Putin will eventually say, we're going to cut off Ukraine from attacking our territory, and they will drop bombs along the eastern side of Ukraine because they can. They're just being restrained. Russia has nuclear artillery. They can fire these things and lay waste to these regions. They're avoiding doing that. It's not because they're good people. I'm not saying that. I'm not a fan of Russia. They should not have invaded. They're the aggressors. They lost soft power. And as I say every time, soft power is the means by which we engage in these geopolitical conflicts. That is, we play political games. Yep, it's true. And we offer money. We try and cut these deals. And that's how it should be. People don't die that way. But you can make better offers and you can win strategically without kinetic conflict. Russia said we can't compete, so war it is, and invaded. Now, I get it. Some make the argument that the U.S. shouldn't have pressured Russia in this way by moving into Ukraine or trying to get Ukraine into NATO, because Russia would have no choice, considering Sevastopol they have a major industrial port and naval base. So Russia was going to have to secure our land. This is obvious it was going to happen. Russia needs the Donbass going down. I think, what is the region? Luhansk? No. I think I got that wrong. It's, I don't know if it's called Odessa. That's the city. But let me make sure I get the region correct. So you've got the, let's see, what are the, Donetsk and, is it Melitopol, Zaporizhia? I don't know. But it's only the southern portion. They want to create land access to Crimea so they can secure this area. Now, others have pointed out there's the Kerch Strait and things like this. They want to secure that whole Sea of Azov. They want to surround it. There's a lot of issues pertaining to how they get access. And people who are stupid have said, what do you mean? Russia's got tons of access to the Black Sea from Krasnodar or whatever, these other territories. They don't have a several $100 million naval base and port that they're going to have to rebuild. They're not giving up that strategic location. This means the pressure from the West was going to result in Russia engaging in war. I'm not saying it is the West's fault or Ukraine's fault. I'm saying it was predictable. And there are things that they could have done to avoid this war I think they should have done. They should have put a no-fly zone over the eastern portion of Ukraine, the Donbass region, Donetsk, Luhansk, Mariupol I think it's Zaporizhia, Mariupol. I don't know the name. I don't know the name of these states. But Zaporizhia, it's Mariupol, Donetsk, and Luhansk. Those are the oblasts. I digress. A lot of people I talked to who are smarter than me said, yeah, they could have taken a lot of action that would have prevented a Russian invasion. They didn't do it. Barack Obama shouldn't have done it. Under Donald Trump, this wasn't happening. It was when Joe Biden came in that Russia began preparing for this invasion, and they could have prevented it. Now I fear we are inching towards World War III, and I have no good answers for you. So all I can really say, my friends, is I hope you're prepared. I don't know if it means anything's coming to the United States, but the economy could get worse. Smash that like button, share the show with everyone you know, become a member over at timcast.com. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all in the next segment on the hour.